Now, the Ghana cedi could soon hit 4 cedis against the US dollar if more is not done by managers of the economy to halt its decline. Importers will now require 3 cedis 70 pesos to purchase a dollar from a forex bureau. The cedi has depreciated over the years primarily because of the demand for foreign currencies by individuals, institutions and government. The foreign currency denominated transactions has been far greater than what has been generated through economic activity, foreign remittances, grants and loans. Last year alone, the cedi depreciated against the US dollar by about 40%. My name is Abigail Adumakwenchi. When we come back, we'll find out what the short and long-term solutions should be to stabilize the falling cedi. We'll also tell you how bad the depreciating cedi is affecting local industry and also do our usual stock and commodity market analysis. Of course, this is Business Live, and we take a critical look at pertinent issues bothering on business and the economy at large. First, we'll take a look at the business news roundup for today.
The Securities and Exchange Commission has given Agricultural Development Bank the approval to go ahead and offer its shares to the public. The approval was given last week when the Commission met to review developments in the banking industry. This means ADB can now begin the processes to possibly list on the local bourse. The bank is expected to offload a little over 50% stake in the institution to the public. The Association of Ghana Industries has made a passionate appeal to government to establish at least a 1 billion Ghana cedi stimulus package as a short-term measure to save industries from total collapse. AGI warned that the manufacturing sector continues to shrink and Ghana risks losing its industrial base if government policies do not quickly address challenges confronting them to revive the industrial sector. Fitch Ratings has affirmed Ghana's long-term foreign and local currency issuer default ratings at B with a negative outlook. The rating agency has also affirmed Ghana's short-term foreign currency IDR at B and country ceiling at B. The issue ratings on Ghana's senior unsecured foreign and local currency bonds have been affirmed at B. The High Commissioner of the Republic of Namibia to Ghana, Charles Joseph, has confirmed that Air Namibia will recommence operations in Ghana soon. The Namibian national carrier folded up its operations in the country in June last year due to high operational costs. After more than 4 years of operating in the country, Air Namibia was reported to have been unable to stand the huge competition from South African Airways, its main rival.
Now, Ghana's imports is likely to double by June this year if government does not speed up action on the depreciating cedi and debilitating energy situation. The situation which will put further stress on the country's depreciating cedi is said to be the only option for industry players. In an exclusive interview with Joy Business, President of the Ghana Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Sete J. Ba, laments members of the association now import what they used to produce weeks ago. Take a listen.
We are importing a lot of fruit juices. Why can't we consume our own juices here? We have a lot of fruits around. But we are importing a lot of fruit juices. Just an example, something ordinary we are importing. If you go down there, all the gas cookers there are assembled locally. We do them. Now we don't have power. We get power 6 hours a day in Koko. So what do? You keep the staff, you look at the cost of running, paying staff, they are not working at their full capacity, it's an extra cost. If you do the calculations and you realize that you are not breaking even, you bring finished products and you sell to the market. So there are quite a lot of things that Ghana we've started doing and we are doing right. So we should have been encouraged to do them more.
Now, that was Dr. Seth Ejeba speaking on the cedi depreciation. Now, some currency analysts have described the falling cedi as unfortunate and have preferred some long and short-term solutions. Currency analyst Derek Mensah also spoke to us. Take a listen.
So in the short term, what the central bank could be looking at doing is that or what they usually do is to improve the supply of foreign currency or the supply of US dollars on the market, usually through their reserves. But if you also take a look at the reserves of the central bank following their publication of their MPC report, you realize that their reserves have declined from 3.2 months of import cover all the way to 2.9. The ideal scenario is that we should have about 3 months of import cover. So it's also not very good that we are looking, we should improve supply from our reserve, looking that the reserve isn't in a very good state. So other places like in Nigeria, there are other tools that the central bank can use. Some of these tools are increasing the cash reserve requirement. Either you are looking at the private sector cash reserve requirement increase or the public sector cash reserve requirement. So there are a number of tools that the central bank can use to mop up liquidity or try to stem the slide of the cedi. Or for the medium to long term, there are certain measures. Looking at how our currency has depreciated historically, the most ideal scenario is that we move away from import-dependent economy to export. This is very long term. Because then you have to change your entire industry from moving from import to export, and that requires that we get our infrastructure right, we get our electricity problem solved right, because we'll be manufacturing locally. But even as dreamy as that may look, that it has to be very long term, it can't be done. But in the medium term, looking somewhere within the 3 to 5 year space, what we can do is perhaps see if we could explore the areas of using perhaps a fixed exchange rate regime, where you quote your currency between a certain band and then keep it pegged at that band. That also comes with its downsides, but looking at the rate at which the cedi has been depreciating in recent years, year on year, perhaps that is an argument that policymakers should consider. Historically taken away last year, where we saw over 30% depreciation of the cedi, we are hoping not to see a similar thing happen this year. As I said, most of it was driven by panic from those policies. So looking at how the cedi will perform this year, historically we've been doing anywhere between 12 to 15%, and possibly maybe it goes up to about 17% against the dollar year on year. But recently this figure is moving and giving us an average of somewhere between 20 to 22%. Indicating that things are usually getting worse year on year. So I'll put the figure back optimistically somewhere between 14% to 15% depreciation. Mind you, we've already done 11%, but I have a lot of confidence in the currency post final deliberation on the IMF matter. I think that it will bring some confidence back into the economy, and then we should see a lot of donor inflows or foreign exchange inflows back into the economy as investors get reassured. But all this is a bit speculative at the moment, so it will be very, very difficult for anybody to just pull any numbers from the sky based on anything. But I will comfortably put the depreciation anywhere between 15%.
Well, we're all waiting for the IMF program. Let's see how it goes, and we hope that the cedi would remain stable and not continue to fall. We'll be back with more analysis on the stock market. Stay tuned. You're still watching Business Live on Joy News TV, and I have here with me Bertha Tubiga, our usual analyst, to discuss the stock market. How are you doing, Bertha?
By God's grace, I'm doing well. Just that I've lost my voice a little.
Well, we'll deal with it. Now, let's go straight to the market. How's it faring?
Well, last week the market continued to give us positive outcomes, or let me say impressive results. We saw both the composite index and the financial stock index adding up 0.06 respectively to their week open level. So we saw the composite index closing at 2,190.84 points to register its average return at that's 3.10%. That's 0.06% increase. And the financial stock index also went up by 0.06, that's 1.39 points, to close at 2,184.98 points and an average return of negative 2.61%. So we saw the financial stock index moving from, it went as high as negative 4%, but now it's below 3%. That's negative 3% on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Though market capital, the value of the exchange, that's market capitalization, went down by 167.77 million Ghana cedis. We saw the market being very liquid as more equities exchange hands on the market, and then we saw that liquidity was quite high on the market as well. So we saw over 2,978,000 shares trading as compared to 2,021,000 shares trading on the market. Now, the market depicted a very liquid one. We saw more equities exchanging hands. We saw both indices adding up to investors at major indices on the stock market. So the market was quite a good one. And today it happened to be good as well because we saw an upward movement on the stock market.
Great.
So,
what's accounting for this good news?
well, it's we forecasted that, or when you look at the trend or the price movement of some of these equities, we realize that they have the potential of even adding more to investors. For instance, BOPP, at the close of the week last week, we said BOPP was going to add up to investors this week, and it actually went up today by some pesos to close at 4 Ghana cedis, 27 pesos. That's just a peso, but that's impressive. So we can say that demand and supply is one factor, and we can also say that investors are getting more into the equity market. People are getting confident in the market. People are taking advantage of the low prices that we experience in the early part of the year and the last quarter of the year. So these are all factors that account for the positive movement that we are having. But foreign direct investment too is also a major factor.
So the cedi has nothing to do with
Well, the cedi's depreciation also has an impact on the market, let me say it that way, because it moves in the opposite way. When the cedi is depreciating, it tends to affect the Ghana Stock Exchange.
Right.
Yes, it affects the stock market as well. So I was listening to the currency analyst, and I realized that he's absolutely right that the cedi might hit 4 Ghana cedis if care is not taken, because now it's trading at 3 Ghana cedis, 70 pesos, and that's a negative sign for the market. Because when it happens like that, investors tend to look at investing more of their cedis in the dollar. Because when you keep, for instance, the dollar is 3 Ghana cedis, 70 pesos today, and you buy more dollars, or you have dollars with you, you only keep it. Maybe in 2-3 months' time, it goes up to 4 Ghana cedis. Then you sell it off. You make a lot of gains. You understand? So that is what will happen. People will turn their attentions to this, to look at keeping their funds or demanding more of the dollar than investing in our markets.
But the depreciation has not reflected on the market yet.
Well, the depreciation, if it should prolong, then I think it's going to have an effect on the market if it should prolong. But right now we are still seeing, though the market is doing well, that's one surprising thing. People are taking advantage of the low prices that we are having, and surprisingly, Unilever has done well in the past weeks. Last week it was part of the Guinness as well as compared to we had 6 equities and 5 were financial equities, and we saw only Unilever being the gainer on the stock market.
Now, how about the losers? If you can quickly go through.
Okay, before I even go to the losers, I just want to touch a little on some of these equities that gained on the stock market last week. We saw Cal CAL went up by peso, Ghana Commercial Bank went up by 5 pesos and is currently trading at its year open price. It started the year at 5 Ghana cedis 30 pesos and it closed the week at 5 Ghana cedis 30 pesos. So now when you check its average returns for the year, that's year-to-date returns, it's 0.00%. So if this equity should appreciate or gain more pesos, it means it will be returning positive returns to investors. And investors that bought the equity this year would be gaining on their investment as well. And we also saw HFC. HFC also went up by 8 pesos. That was the second top in terms of absolute returns. It went up by 8 pesos to close at 1 Ghana cedis 33 pesos. And as I speak to you today, HFC has added 2 pesos again to its price to close at 1 Ghana cedis 35 pesos. And Standard Chartered Bank also added a peso to close at 20 Ghana cedis 27 pesos. Unilever added 11 pesos in the highest gainer to close at 8 cedis 50 pesos. That's 1.31% of its previous price. EBG added a peso, that's 0.13% to its previous price. But there's one funny thing about last week with CAL. You know, Monday CAL added 10 pesos and it was trading at 1 Ghana cedis 15 pesos. Tuesday it lost 10 pesos. Wednesday it added 10 pesos.
Interesting.
And Thursday it lost 9 pesos and it closed the week at 1 cedi 6 pesos. You see, so this is some of the things that we experience, and it happened with HFC as well. HFC added 5 pesos 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks ago, it added 5 pesos, dropped 5, added 5, 5, and it's now trading at 1 cedi 35 pesos per unit. So last week was a very volatile week. Yes, it was a week that's really took investors by surprise because of the way some of these equities were moving, or moving in their price levels and all that. It was quite an interesting one, and we are optimistic that equities are, especially with the financial equities, are going to add up more to investors. Even in this week.
Touched on the losers.
Yes, I'm going to touch on that. Well, we saw only 4 equities losing on the stock market as of last week, and we still had more gainers as compared to the losers. EGL, ETI, PBC, and SIC were the losers on the market, and all these equities lost a peso. But in percentage terms, we saw ETI losing the highest, that's 3.85% on its week open price of 0.26 to close at 0.25. That's 25 Ghana cedis per share. So that's what happened. But you see, we didn't see significant declines in the major indices on the market, with ETI having the highest issue shares. That's one other thing that we look at. But we saw marginal increase. We didn't see significant increase as we would have seen maybe if equities such as ETI formed part of the gainers list. So we saw the major indices going up by just 0.06% respectively. Meanwhile, we saw 6 of these 4 of these equities being financial stocks. So we were expecting, like, a normal person, or let me say a normal investor would say that I expect the major indices to rise up significantly, looking at the gainers that we saw on the market, but it wasn't that significant when you compare the week open level to the week close level.
What's happening to ETI?
ETI, you know, one thing that also affects the market is sensitive information. They had this issue with it's a very big group. Yeah. And in other countries, for instance, the Nigeria one had an issue. Okay. And when such negative issues pop up, it actually sometimes affects the price movement. Either if the information or whatever news comes out is negative or positive, then it has that effect on the equity on the market. But sometimes too, it doesn't. Okay, the reason why I'm saying that sometimes it has and sometimes it doesn't, because HFC had an issue with Senate where there was an issue whereby they wanted to dismiss 3 of the board members. But immediately that issue was resolved, nothing happened. All of a sudden we saw the equity picking up again. But when this issue was ongoing, they were talking about it and all that, we saw the price of HFC consistently dropping on the stock market. So this should tell you that sensitive information, talking about managers, talking about operations, talking about the financials of the company, are all things that the managements are taking notes. So yes, they are sensitive information that really affects the price movement on the stock market. So basically, this is how the market has been. And then, for me, as an analyst or that monitors the stock markets, we're expecting more equities to do well. especially the
in
financial
the coming week.
This week, yeah, especially with the financial equities
and why
on the
is that?
stock market. Well, the financial equities, let me say, are not affected so much when it comes to cedi's depreciation. Though their cost of production might go high because of the energy crisis that we are experiencing, the cedi's depreciation affects the manufacturing sector more than it will affect the banks or the financial institutions. So that is one advantage that goes for them. And another thing is that these financial equities have released impressive financials, end-of-year financials, except some that, for instance, they were expecting more gains or in their profits, but it wasn't as significant as what they were expecting. But in all, you can say out of most of the financial equities on the market released impressive financial reports. And as we speak now, I think Cal was returning about 3.3% to investors, and as of Friday, it returned 4.95% to investors. And that's quite good. Yeah. It's good, and most of these equities are form part of the Guinness list. I think 2 of them are trading have returned now with their year-to-date returns is below -1%. So there's a possibility, a high possibility, that most of these financial equities will move into positive year-to-date returns, average appreciations before even the end of April.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about commodities. How is the market faring?
I wish they had the figures here so that I'll just take our viewers through, because we gave them a week by week analysis. Well, with what we have here, as at the close of last week, we saw all the commodities on the international market, talking about crude oil, gold, cocoa, coffee, and sugar. We saw them losing value or going down as compared to their previous prices on the market. Okay. And as at Friday, crude oil had dropped. When you compare Thursday,
oil is still dropping.
Yes, comparing it to the previous week, that's last 2 weeks Friday and last week Friday, it had dropped by 4.73%. And year to date, week on week basis, that's on a weekly basis, year to date, it has dropped about 3.05%, $3.05 US, and then that is 5.34%. And when we look at gold year to date has dropped about 1.36%, and cocoa has dropped 6.70%. Then we have sugar dropping about 13.08%, and then coffee went down by 9.03% on a weekly basis. So this is how the prices of
what's happening to a commodity market.
So one thing that we should also look at is that the drop in these prices of especially crude oil, gold, and cocoa is one thing that we need to consider very well. For instance, when crude oil prices continue to go down, we see this, for instance, Talo Ghana. They proposed, or let me say, had a plan of laying off some workers. Crude oil goes down, it affects these companies. Yeah. And when we see gold prices going down, then it means that those in the mining sector will also have to lay off workers to be able to break even, because their cost of production will go high. And look at cocoa. Cocoa is something that is also helping the agricultural side, let me put it that way, or our farmers, because they are able to produce and export it to other countries. But if it happens that the prices of this product, cocoa, continues to go down, then it means that the profits that they are going to be getting on their...
Unfortunately, we don't have control over it.
Yes, we don't have control. It's just like the forest market. You demand more, then the price keeps going up. But when less is demanded, then it keeps going down.
But what's even worsens the case is energy situation. I mean,
it's not,
with these
well, we hope what the president is saying really comes to pass, that it will soon be over. And if it's indeed going to be over, then I think we're going to see some stability in some of these sectors, and people might not lose their jobs anymore.
Well, we are all hopeful. Thank you very much, Bertha, for giving us that in-depth analysis.
Thank you.
And that was Bertha Atubiga, our usual analyst. My name is Abigail Adomakoenchi, and this has been Business Live. There are more programs coming up. Do stay on. Don't go anywhere.